This is CBC Here and Now.
Hashtag help find Cortney. The RNC calls her disappearance suspicious.
It's been almost a week now. This deviation from her typical routine certainly has created a great alarm for investigators.
It's been almost a week since 24-year-old Cortney Lake was last seen. Her family and friends are extremely worried, doing everything they can to try and find her.
Well, now police say her disappearance is suspicious. Here Now's Peggy Lamb was at the RNC News Conference this afternoon. She's joining us live. Peggy, what is the latest?
Well, as you may know, she has been missing since last Wednesday afternoon. It is an unusual move, but the RNC is releasing video footage of when she was last seen, which is right here at this Esso station behind me on Elizabeth Avenue. The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary says Lake's disappearance is highly suspicious. Police say that for almost a week she hasn't been using her cell phone, bank account, or social media. They're launching a public campaign with the hashtag Help Find Cortney.
One of the ways they can assist us in our investigation would be for them to share the information, because you don't know how much someone you may know on your own social media may know to offer to us. So that's why we've created this theme through social media with the hashtag. So we're encouraging everybody to hit share on our posts, and we're hoping that we can find Cortney quickly.
Lake was wearing a gray jacket, pink hoodie, and a plaid shirt, black pants, and Nike sneakers with pink laces. Now, Lake's family and friends are also offering a reward with for anybody with information of her whereabouts. They're trying to raise $2,000 through a GoFundMe campaign.
This is CBC Here and Now.
The father of Cortney Lake's son speaks out.
I don't believe for a minute that she went off on her own.
It's exactly 1 week since anyone has heard anything from Cortney Lake.
Now, police say the 24-year-old who's been was last living in Mount Pearl was last seen at this Esso station on Elizabeth Avenue in St. John's.
The RNC considers her disappearance suspicious.
Lake's parents have declined interview requests, but there is one family member who is speaking out tonight.
And Here and Now's Megan McCabe is live with that side of the story. Megan?
If this was a regular Wednesday, Cortney Lake would be here at the Muse Center, taking her 6-year-old son swimming. Her ex-boyfriend, the father of that son, would be here too. Today, that father, 34-year-old Jason Pike, says there's been no sign of Lake since he dropped her off at her mom's house in Mount Pearl after their son's swimming lesson last week. And Pike says that he has spoken with police and that forensic investigators have gone through his vehicle. I met Jason Pike earlier today in Bannerman Park, where he says they'd often take their son to play. He says it's not like Lake to disappear like this for a week. And he has custody of their son, but he says he has no idea how to explain to him what's going on.
Biggest fear to date. He's been through so much in such a short period of time, and I just don't want to see him hurt anymore. You know, he loves his mom very much, and like through everything, me and Cortney still cared about each other a great deal, you know?
He says they were together for about 4 years until they split up not long after their son was born. Pike says Lake has mental health and addictions problems, but he says her life with their son was just getting better.
Feel a little cheated, because you know you want something for so long, and then you finally get there and it's so close, and things are finally starting to feel settled, and it's just like poof, like how'd that happen? How does that happen?
Pike says that for now he hasn't told their son that his mom is missing and he doesn't really know how. As for the investigation, police say there's no real update, but we do know that along with the rovers, there's been an extensive ground search in Mount Pearl in the Powers Pond area last night, and then later this afternoon in the Seal Cove area of Conception Bay South. So for now, that's all we know about Cortney Lake, and the search certainly is continuing. Reporting live for Here and Now in St. John's, I'm Megan McCabe.
This is CBC Here and Now.
A personal plea from the family of Cortney Lake.
I want you to know that we will never rest. We will never give up.
Well, it has been 8 days since Cortney Lake's family has heard from her, but they're still clinging to hope the 24-year-old will be found. Today, her family reached out to the media. Cortney Lake's aunt just spoke with our Megan McCabe. So, Megan, what did her aunt tell you?
Glenda Powers says it's a nightmare, especially with police calling it suspicious. But they wanted to talk today for two reasons: to thank everyone for all the help and support, and to show that they are not losing hope. Powers been running this command center here in her house all day, every day since Lake disappeared. And she says love and support from thousands of people are helping them get through, and they're all praying that Cortney will come home any minute. I asked her how they're keeping that hope alive.
That's all we have. And, you know, I just want to say, Cortney, if you are out there right now and you are hearing this or seeing this, I want Cortney to know, I want you to know that we will never rest. We will never give up. We're going to keep fighting and working, and you will come home to us. You can trust in that. And I have to say, to the persons who might have had a hand in her disappearance, I want you to think of your sister, your daughter, your niece, your loved one, and what would you do if she was missing? And I am saying to you now, do the right thing. It is not too late to do the right thing. Call the police, call Crime Stoppers.
On that message of hope, the family is planning 3 vigils for 8 o'clock tomorrow night in Mount Pearl, Marystown, and St. Lawrence, where she's lived and has family. As for the search for Lake, police continue their investigation, but there's no news today.
Cortney Lake's family is into its 2nd week of not knowing where she is, but police say tips are pouring in about the suspicious disappearance of the 24-year-old. Now they know more about where and when she was last seen. Here Now's Megan McCabe has more.
It's a nice day in a quiet neighborhood, perfect for Terry Lawler to do some work outside. But he's looking for normalcy in the middle of a nightmare. Cortney Lake missing from this very street.
Wake up in the morning, I step out on my front step and I look over and see pictures of her posted all over her house. You know, it takes you right to the heart, you know. It's sad to hear, and it's sad to see what happened to this young girl, you know.
This is Cortney Lake's neighborhood in Mount Pearl. And now, thanks to new information, police say that this is the last place she was seen, walking away from her mom's house on Wellington Crescent here and heading towards Lindbergh and Ruth Avenue over by where the schools are. She was caught on video camera from one of these houses here at 7:52 p.m. on Wednesday, June 7th. And that's the last anyone's heard of her since she stopped using her phone and accessing her bank account.
Police say this pushes ahead the timeline of Lake's disappearance. 3:07 p.m. in Esso on Anderson Avenue, swimming with her 6-year-old son, dropped off at her mom's, a couple phone calls from inside, then nothing. RNC Constable Jeff Higdon says anyone with possible video of Lake from a dash cam, home, or business should contact them.
And we're hoping that the images we released may, of Cortney, hopefully will appear in some of those camera footage that can help investigators piece together the moments after and kind of further build the timeline, because we know she went somewhere, we just don't know where.
Back on her street, Lawler says he doesn't know Cortney or her mom, but the whole neighborhood is on edge.
Makes it a little bit uneasy because my girlfriend's home and she feels a little bit still unsafe because we don't really know what happened, how she left, so it's pretty scary.
Lake's family is holding out hope she'll come home and keeping the lights on until she does. Megan McCabe, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
About 20 volunteers searched for Cortney Lake on Saturday in the Goulds area of St. John's. Now, the 24-year-old woman has been missing for almost 3 weeks now. The group set out on ATVs to go through a wooded area hoping to find some trace of Lake. Organizers say they didn't have a specific area to search, and a couple of them did have connections to Lake. Now, she was last seen on security video walking away from her home in Mount Pearl. Police say Lake's disappearance is suspicious, and they're worried about her well-being. They're asking anyone with any information to contact them.
This is CBC Here and Now.
A break in the Cortney Lake case? Police searched the home of an ex-boyfriend. Police executed a search warrant in the East End of St. John's this afternoon.
Yes, it was at the house of a man with a connection to Cortney Lake.
She's the 24-year-old mom who went missing earlier this month.
And Here Now's Megan McCabe has been on this story today, and she joins us now with the latest. Megan?
Just moments ago, police were searching that home in the east end of the city, and they've been waiting there since last night. The RNC will not confirm that this search is connected to the suspicious disappearance of Cortney Lake, but we know an ex-boyfriend of Lake's lived there. Shortly before 5 o'clock today, police were taking items from 22 Alice Drive. This 2-unit house is owned by Philip Smith and his dad, Melvin Smith. In court documents, it's also listed as the home of a 23-year-old Philip Stephen Smith. Smith was in a relationship with Cortney Lake as recently as this year. He's currently in police custody for breaching court orders. On June 7th, the same day that Lake was last seen, Smith was charged in Mount Pearl with driving a vehicle while disqualified and failing to stay away from Lisa Lake, Cortney's mom. Smith was also ordered to stay away from Cortney Lake. There's been no sign of Lake in the past 3 weeks since she was seen walking away from her mom's house in Mount Pearl that night. Now, Philip Stephen Smith is not charged in connection with Lake's disappearance. He's due to appear in court for a bail hearing next week on charges of breaching previous court orders.
This is CBC Here and Now.
June 7th, the day Cortney Lake disappears, her ex-boyfriend pleads guilty to assaulting her.
There are new details tonight coming from the court records of Cortney Lake's ex-boyfriend.
Philip Smith's East End home was searched by police yesterday afternoon.
Here Now's Megan McCabe is live outside Smith's residence on Alice Drive. So Megan, what do we know?
Got Smith's court records earlier today, and we're getting a picture of a potentially abusive relationship between 25-year-old Philip Stephen Smith and 24-year-old Cortney Lake. On June 5th, 2 days before Lake was last seen, Smith was charged with breaching a court order to stay away from Lake and her mom, Lisa Lake. Then, on June 7th, the very day that Lake disappeared suspiciously, Smith was in court pleading guilty to assaulting her 6 weeks earlier. He was convicted of that assault and released on conditions. Now, also on June 7th, Smith is charged with breaching a couple of those conditions by driving while disqualified and failing to stay away from Lisa Lake, Cortney Lake's mother. Both of those things happened in Mount Pearl. Mount Pearl is also the last place that Cortney Lake was seen. At 7:52 p.m., she was walking away from her mom's house on Wellington Crescent, and no sign of her since. As for Smith, he is not charged in connection with Lake's disappearance, but he is in police custody. He was arrested Tuesday for breaching a court order. And police have told us just late this afternoon, they said tomorrow morning they'll be giving an update on the investigation into Cortney Lake's disappearance. I'll have more on this story later in the show, but for now, reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Megan McCabe in St. John's.
Well, back now to our top story. There are new details tonight about Philip Smith. He's Cortney Lake's ex-boyfriend.
Lake went missing on June 7th, and police deemed her disappearance suspicious.
Here Now's Megan McCabe joins us now live. So, Megan, have you heard from Cortney Lake's family?
Yes, I have. I've been speaking with them over the course of the day. And, you know, as we know, Lake has a 6-year-old son. So they're very concerned that it's been 3 weeks since his mom was last seen. And you know, her family tells me that things were really starting to go well for Cortney. She had a new boyfriend who was a really sweet man, and her ex-boyfriend was convicted of assaulting her the very day she was disappeared. Like, he was convicted for the assaults that happened back in April. And he'd also been ordered to stay away from Lake and her mom, but he was completely disregarding that, obviously. And you know, it's quiet here on Alice Drive this evening, but yesterday the street was just bustling with police removing items from this house here, 22 Alice Drive, where Philip Smith lived. Neighbors tell me that they don't know much about Smith. He's lived here for a couple of years, but they had seen Cortney here within the past few months, right on the step of that house and also at the neighborhood store. And they also told me that police have been canvassing this area just last week, asking anyone if they had seen Lake and searching all of the properties around. But as far as we know, absolutely nothing. However, we are hoping, and we understand now, that we will get a significant update from the police 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And they also tell us that there'll be new digital media, so new video to go along with the information they have about Lake's disappearance. I'll be there, and so you should follow CBC to get the latest as we learn it. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Megan McCabe in St. John's.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Homicide investigation. Police now believe Cortney Lake is dead.
Investigators have identified people of interest, but we will not be providing any information on who may be involved.
Well, for over 3 weeks, Cortney Lake's family was hoping she would return to them alive, but this morning that hope was destroyed as police announced they now believe she was killed.
And they're asking for the public's help in locating her body that they believe may be in a wooded area. Here Now's Megan McCabe has reported on this story since Lake went missing. She joins us again tonight. Megan.
Police aren't saying exactly what evidence led them to believe that Lake's been murdered, but this new video showing Lake right here getting into this black truck in Mount Pearl is a critical piece of the puzzle. This is from an unidentified dash cam, and police say it was recorded on the evening of June 7th at exactly 7:54. Police say it shows Lake getting into the passenger side of a black GMC pickup truck on Michener Avenue, which is very close to her mom's house in Mount Pearl. Until now, the last images of Lake were from here, walking away from her mom's house on Wellington Crescent, and it was taken just 2 minutes earlier at 7:52 p.m. that night. And she ends up here on Michener Avenue, and there's been absolutely no sign of her since. Now, police are not saying who's driving that truck or who owns it, but we do know that it matches the description of a truck removed from her ex-boyfriend's house earlier this week.
We're not going to, I guess, speculate as to whether or not that truck was the truck we're looking for, but we know that the truck that Cortney got into was a black GMC truck. We do know that, and you can't see it in the video that we've released. I think there's another part of the clip there where investigators were able to see that there's that distinctive deer head is in a camo pattern.
So this is the truck that Lake gets into. And this is the truck taken from 22 Alice Drive, where her ex-boyfriend, Philip Stephen Smith, lived. Now, you can see the window is smashed out of this one, and you can also see that distinctive deer head in a camouflage pattern, which Constable Higdon describes. Here's an even clearer shot of it. Now, police say that if anyone noticed this truck driving or if it was parked somewhere in the woods, this decal should really stick out. The RNC says that persons of interest have been identified, but no one is charged at this point. Her ex, 25-year-old Philip Stephen Smith, has been in custody since Tuesday when he was arrested for breaching court orders, including an order to stay away from Cortney and her mom. He'll be in court for a bail hearing on those charges on Tuesday. Carolyn?
Thanks, Megan. That's Here and Now's Megan McCabe. Well, after hearing today's news, Cortney Lake's family released a statement. It reads, "Our hearts are forever broken. Cortney has been taken from us in the worst way imaginable. We are horrified and devastated as we think of what her last moments on this earth might have been. We will not rest until we bring Cortney home. We hope justice is swift and strong. Our family is very thankful for the overwhelming amount of support we've received over the last 3 weeks. We implore the public now to come forward to police with any additional information or video footage that could help us find Cortney.
Well, with the new video released today, we have a better idea of the last minutes Cortney Lake was seen alive. She has been missing from that quiet Mount Pearl neighborhood since June 7th. Here now's Ryan Cook takes us to the scene.
On June 7th, Cortney Lake left her home on Wellington Crescent. She made this short walk up Lindbergh Avenue, across traffic lights at the intersection of Ruth Avenue. She ended up here on Michener Avenue, where she stepped into a black pickup truck. By a stroke of luck, her last steps may have been captured on a dash cam.
The public has been providing information that, of course, has been leading to searches. The dash cam video that we received is, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at it, but it's pretty spectacular that we actually have video of that moment that she got into a truck.
Now here's how that 2-minute walk looks on a map. As you can see, it's not far, but it does pass streets, a school, a bus stop, and these are all potential eyes, ears, and cameras. In the age of dash cams and home security, police are hoping somebody else has seen something. They believe Lake was taken to a secluded, possibly wooded area, somewhere private, quiet, where the young mother's life came to an end.
Unfortunately, we don't know how far she would have been driven. If you have any video, for example, if you're driving out the Outer Ring Road and you had dash cam that was running at that time and maybe it picks up a black truck, then that could be helpful to investigators.
Police have searched several wooded areas, some close to the pickup point on Michener Avenue, some as far away as Seal Cove. If anyone has dash cam footage from June 7th after 7:54 p.m., they are asked to contact the police. Something seemingly inconspicuous, a common black pickup, could just be the break the police and Lake's family are desperately looking for. For Here and Now in Mount Pearl, I'm Ryan Cook.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Intensive search looking for clues in the Cortney Lake case. Good evening and welcome to a special 30-minute edition of Here and Now. We begin tonight with the continuing search for Cortney Lake. Lake was last seen on June 7th getting into a black GMC truck in Mount Pearl. On Friday, the RNC said Lake's disappearance is now considered a homicide investigation. Here and Now's Allison Sampson has the latest.
I'm here just outside Torbayman's Pond, near Cochrane's Pond along the TCH. This is where police have been searching for Cortney Lake since yesterday evening. They're now looking at it as a homicide investigation. Something led them to this area yesterday, but they haven't told us what it is. Rovers Ground Search and Rescue and the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary and their canine unit patrolled the area. They covered the entire pond, looking for anything in connection with the disappearance of the 24-year-old mother. Rovers took to the water to search below the surface. The RNC's forensic unit left the scene just before lunchtime, but so far the police aren't saying what, if anything, has been found here since the search began. Searchers are expected to remain in the area until they lose daylight. The RNC has also requested that people stay away from the scene while they are conducting the search. Allison Sampson, CBC News, on the TCH just outside St. John's.
Welcome to Here and Now. Let's get straight to our top story. A troublesome timeline. CBC Investigates has new information about Cortney Lake and her tumultuous relationship with ex-boyfriend Philip Stephen Smith.
Here Now's Megan McCabe has been following the story since the 24-year-old woman disappeared a month ago. She's now live with us. Megan, what have you learned?
Lake's ex-boyfriend, Philip Smith, walked out of court and through these doors just 4 hours before Lake was last seen. The 25-year-old man was up on a number of charges, and he'd been ordered to stay away from Lake and her mom for months. And among the charges that Smith admitted to in court that day, June 7th, assaulting Cortney Lake and sending intimate photos of her without her permission. His 30-minute court appearance on June 7th reveals 2 months of conflict between the couple, with Lake's own description of harassment and violence at the hands of her ex read aloud. In April, Lake told police that Smith punched her twice as she was trying to get out of his truck by the Marine Institute, near his house. An RNC officer saw a bump over Lake's eyebrow and a cut inside her lower lip. A month later, Smith sent Lake's new boyfriend nude photos of her. She told police the photos were for Smith while the two were together, not to be shared with anyone else. On June 5th, Lake told police Smith called her 33 times that day and showed up at her house in Mount Pearl. He was arrested. 2 days later, Smith was here in court where he pleaded guilty and was convicted of those offenses. He was released for 2 days' time served with conditions. Both the Crown and the defense noted that Smith didn't have a prior criminal record. Smith's lawyer said he was remorseful and took responsibility by pleading guilty, and that Smith had said he and Cortney Lake had an unhealthy relationship and he wouldn't contact her again.
Smith is now back in jail for breaching some of those conditions, including failing to stay away from Cortney Lake's mom. He is due back here in court next week. Meanwhile, police are treating Lake's disappearance as a homicide. No one has been charged. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Megan McCabe in St. John's.
Well, police say Cortney Lake was last seen getting into a black pickup truck in Mount Pearl in the evening of June 7th. In the meantime, RNC and volunteers are still searching for Lake's body. More on this on our website, cbc.ca/NL.
Our top story tonight, volunteers are looking for the body of Cortney Lake this evening, 1 week after police declared her disappearance a homicide investigation.
Yeah, the RNC says Lake was last seen getting into a black pickup truck in Mount Pearl on the night of June 7th with no sign of her since.
Here now's Megan McCabe is live at a volunteer-led search near the Marine Institute in St. John's. Megan, why are volunteers searching there tonight?
Well, they're looking for anything that might lead to finding the 24-year-old Cortney Lake. And her aunt, Glenda Power, is here tonight helping to organize this search. Glenda, why are you doing this?
Well, today marks 1 month since Cortney disappeared and 1 week since the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary announced that her disappearance is now a murder investigation. There's nothing more important to our family than finding her, and we have to help the search efforts as best as we can.
And why here?
Well, my sister Donna, actually another of Cortney's aunts, made this decision, and she's just looking at all the information that the police put out, look at the areas that they defined, the time she was picked up, and we focused a few of our searches towards the West End and just outside of St. John's, and thought that maybe it might be a good idea to try the East End now here in the Ridge Road area.
Now, this is not the only search. And can you tell me about the different searches that are being organized by the family and by volunteers?
Certainly. So, of course, the police are searching, and the rovers and all the resources they use. This is the 4th search now organized by the family, and I have to thank the public for coming out. Like, people come out on foot, on bikes, and pickups and cars, and they're so helpful, and most of them don't even know Cortney. And then we have searches by the public. Like, I noticed in our Facebook group just a little while ago that a member of the public is organizing a search for the Topsail Beach area for tomorrow morning. So I'd suggest everyone watch the Facebook group for searches, and we'd certainly love your help.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple people earlier who don't know Cortney Lake, but they said they were here because they just felt it was really important to find her, and one woman was a young mother herself. Who are these people coming to help look for her?
They are people who have been touched by our story. Their hearts are now connected to Cortney and her disappearance and now her murder. And it fills my heart, and it supports our family so much to know that so many people care, not just across the province, but across the country about Cortney and her disappearance.
Glenda, were you shocked when the police said they believe?
I don't think any family prepares to hear that kind of news, and we certainly were growing more and more worried every day, but We never put our heads there. We just could not. So it devastated us. There's no other word for it.
How are you and your family holding up?
You know, given the horrific circumstances, I think we're coping as best we can given what we're dealing with. But, the people see one side. We're here organizing searches. We're giving out information. But, I mean, we have days when we just can't get out of bed. We are devastated. We break down. But we have lots of support, too. So we keep going. And we're going to keep going until she's found, until a murder charge is laid and justice is served.
You can see people getting organized here behind us. Yeah. I mean, how does this, what's going through your mind here tonight? A month later, all these people are here.
Well, I think for one thing, our family has done our job in keeping Cortney on the radar of the people of this province. They have been moved by her. I think they've connected to our family, and they look at Cortney and think, well, she could be my daughter, my sister, my friend, and that's why all of these people are out tonight, and they're there now getting their instructions from my sister Donna on where to search and what the parameters are and so on, and we're just so grateful for them.
Thank you, Glenda.
Thank you, Megan.
Now, this area here happens to be very close to Philip Stephen Smith's house. He's Lake's ex-boyfriend. However, neighbors told us just last week that officers and police dogs searched the neighborhood a few weeks ago. Police aren't saying who they've identified as persons of interest in this case, and no one has been charged. As for 25-year-old Philip Stephen Smith, he's in custody for breaching court orders, and he's due in court next week. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Megan McCabe in St. John's.
While the search for Cortney Lake continues, volunteers searched over the weekend, though they didn't find anything. But Lake's relatives are vowing not to give up. Billboards are now posted on Topsail and Kenmount Roads in St. John's. Lake was last seen in Mount Pearl on the evening of June the 7th. Police are treating her disappearance as a homicide. Lake's aunt, Glenda Power, says volunteers searched the woods near the Marine Institute on Friday and in the Goulds yesterday. While they didn't find anything this time, Power says they did find something a week ago.
That search happened, it was organized by our family in the Paddy's Pond area. Lots of items were found. There was one item of particular interest, and we notified the police, and they came and retrieved that. And of course, they have a lot of work to do. It was found by a volunteer searcher. We know it belonged to Cortney.
Cortney Lake's ex-boyfriend will stay in jail for another couple of weeks. 25-year-old Philip Stephen Smith is in custody for breaching orders. His case was called in court this morning, but he wasn't there. Smith's lawyer told the judge he's waiting for disclosure from the Crown. Smith is due back in court on August 4th. Meanwhile, volunteers continue to search for Cortney Lake. More than 50 people combed the woods in Paradise yesterday near the Kenmount Road West development. Lake has been missing since June 7th, and police are treating the investigation as a homicide, but no one has been charged. Her family and volunteers are conducting almost daily searches for her remains.
Justice Minister Andrew Parsons is touting the benefits of an Atlantic-wide team to investigate police behavior. All 4 provinces have agreed in principle to create one unit to investigate serious incidents, but there are still a lot of details to work out. Here and Now's Peter Cowan explains.
The plan would be to expand the Nova Scotia Severe Incident Response Team to cover police officers in this province as well as the other Atlantic provinces. That team already has experience here. They've done 2 recent reviews looking at police behavior in this province. Now, exactly how this team would work, how many people would be based here, how severe an incident would have to be before they get called in, well, that's stuff that's all being worked out. The Justice Minister told me today he expects to have legislation this fall that will iron out all those details. But Andrew Parsons says he hasn't seen any evidence that this province needs its own separate investigative unit.
So if we can show the ability that we can have outside resources brought in with absolutely no connection to this province, we immediately get away from this perception that is there and that can taint the investigation, especially from the public. This comes down to a public confidence issue. Having had Nova Scotia do the work here, we've had a chance to see how they operate. We're quite comfortable with that, and I think that the 4 provinces working together give us more resources to draw from, and usually at a lesser cost.
This regional model isn't just the first choice for the Justice Minister. Leo Berry, who headed up the Dunphy inquiry, also recommended going this route. He says that by having a regional model, you'll have better trained investigators because they'll be dealing with more cases. The other big question in all of this is how much is it going to cost? Right now, Nova Scotia spends about $800,000 a year, but Andrew Parsons says that the cost for this province should be a whole lot less than that by going with a regional model. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Proving murder without a body?
It's a lot easier if there is a body to know that a crime has occurred.
Cortney Lake's disappearance has been ruled a homicide, but there's no body. So what does that mean for police? And can a murder charge even be laid if she's not found? Here Now's Ariana Kelland reports.
It's been more than a month of searching, first for a missing mom, then for a homicide victim.
We're going to keep going until she's found, until a murder charge is laid and justice is served.
And sometimes to get justice, you need to find the missing person. After all, a body is one definitive way of knowing that someone has been killed. Police only need reasonable grounds to lay a charge, but prosecutors need to prove much more than that.
The Crown is not able to present, I guess, physical evidence or scientific evidence about the cause of death, the manner of death, the time of death, those types of evidentiary issues that you see in almost every case.
Going to trial without a body does happen, though. Just look at Nova Scotia. This is William Sanderson, sentenced to life in prison just 2 days ago. His victim's body has never been recovered, but there was enough other evidence to convict.
They're not necessarily rare. They do happen. It's a lot easier if there is a body to know that a crime has occurred. That's the difference between if someone is missing or if you can confirm that they're deceased.
Finding the body could not only find the person responsible, it could also rule out suspects.
DNA evidence does not support necessarily nor prove that a person actually committed the crime. It can only show that a person was there. Yet lack of DNA evidence can fully support that a person wasn't there.
27 years ago, Robert Baltovich was arrested for a crime he did not commit. He was sent to prison for the murder of his girlfriend, Elizabeth Bain.
In that case, they had their theory, they were able to follow suit with the theory, and they felt that the evidence they had supported it. Therefore, they didn't need the body. Now, in the case of Rob, it is a case of wrongful conviction, so they moved forward when he wasn't the actual perpetrator.
They still have not found Elizabeth Bain's body. To date, no one has been arrested for the homicide of Cortney Lake, but that hasn't stopped police or her family looking for answers. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Now to news from the courts. The former boyfriend of Cortney Lake has admitted he picked her up in his truck on the evening she went missing just over 2 months ago. Here Now's Glenn Payette has the story.
This morning in provincial court in St. John's, Philip Smith admitted he called Cortney Lake twice on the evening of June 7th and admitted to picking her up in his black GMC Sierra truck later that evening on Michener Avenue in Mount Pearl. June 7th is the day Lake went missing. Police have released video of Lake getting into a black GMC on that street that night. They believe this is the last time she was seen in public. When Lake first disappeared, police treated it as a missing persons case. It's now being handled as a murder investigation. There have been a number of searches for her body by police, the Rovers, and volunteers. Today, Smith pleaded guilty to having contact with Lake while being prohibited from doing so in a probation order. He was on probation because earlier on June 7th, he had been found guilty of assaulting Lake in April and guilty of breaching an existing order to stay away from Lake and her mother. mother. Smith had also been under a court order not to drink. Today, he also pleaded guilty to breaching that order. The police had seen Smith drinking at a restaurant and buying beer on June 27th. He was arrested shortly after and has been in custody ever since. Judge James Walsh said it's clear that Smith has a callous disregard for court orders. In a plea bargain worked out between the Crown and defense, Smith was sentenced to 90 days in prison. With credit for time served, he has 24 days left in that sentence. Meanwhile, the search for Cortney Lake's body continues. Glenn Payette, CBC News, St. John's.
For summer, falls, I'm going. Yeah, I'm going till I got no more gold left in me.
Good evening. Tonight, Here and Now takes you inside a family's painful and unrelenting search for a missing daughter.
For 3 months, the family of Cortney Lake has been scouring the woods, looking for the young woman's body, and that search continues tonight in the Goulds.
Our Megan McCabe's been following this story since the very beginning and joins us live. Megan?
Yes, Debbie, the searchers are just gathering here, getting ready to head out into the woods for tonight's search. And they're looking for 24-year-old Cortney Lake, who was last seen getting into a truck in Mount Pearl, a truck her ex-boyfriend admitted he was driving, just hours after leaving jail under the condition to stay away from her. What we don't know is what happened next. While police are calling her disappearance a homicide, no one has been charged. And this weekend, Lake's family let CBC in for an exclusive look at just how much work goes into putting off searches of this size.
This will be a good spot to put down number 2 because it's halfway up the road and it encompasses.
Donna and Vince Walsh spend every waking moment plotting out ground searches for their niece. Police believe Lake was taken by truck to a wooded area. 3 times a week, they scour the wilderness of the Northeast Avalon. So do hundreds of volunteer searchers, some lifelong friends, some strangers, all dedicated to finding the young mother's body.
We hope it's us that find Cortney and not the family, because we don't want that to be their last memory of Cortney.
So, sections 1.
The Walshes choose a spot, map it out, and assign searchers to comb the area on foot and on ATVs. They want the group to stay safe and ensure potential evidence is protected for police.
We're just going to go through the do's and don'ts of in terms of searching and what we're looking for. Cortney is above ground, is not this, right? So you need to keep that in mind as you do your search.
Hard to believe she's talking about her niece. The massive search efforts take a ton of resources. Donations have helped the family turn it into a well-oiled machine.
So that's enough food. I think we're well away there.
Oh, yeah.
The day before Saturday's search in Torbay, they're here at the Walsh family kitchen table.
It doesn't seem real yet. We need to find her. We need to put closure.
No matter how exhausting.
Winter, summer, fall, I'm going. Yeah, I'm going till I got no more gold left in me. And all my family feel the same, our supporters feel the same.
So it is a lot of go in, search, come back, and then work your way in through again.
Derek Kearney knows Lake's parents from home on the Burin Peninsula. His almost 20 years experience as a paramedic doesn't compare to this.
You sort of prepare yourself the best you can in case you're the one that comes along and finds her. But at the same time, it's going to be scary when you do find Cortney.
Kearney's been to every search in the past 6 weeks, 18 in total. The group, he says, have become like family, a level of compassion Lake's family rely on.
Just knowing the support is there, knowing we're not out there alone. It just gets us through. Day by day, search by search.
With time ticking on, Walsh says she's not worried people will lose interest.
What does worry me is the shorter evenings, the fall, the winter, because we're zoning in, I think. I do. Our map is getting smaller.
So if she wasn't here, she might be here tomorrow.
It's been almost 11 weeks, 30 searches and about 300 searchers, plus several searches by police, but still no sign of Cortney Lake. Her family and their supporters are hoping that this one here in Torbay will be the one. 3 searches a week and still new people showing up, and original searchers returning to help. The commitment is really something.
I got laid off from my job back in May, and I was home basically doing nothing. I was looking for work, and I said, what a nice way to try to put back and help this family out. So instead of being home bored every day, I'm out and I'm helping this family. So whatever I can do personally to find Cortney and bring her home and put her at her final resting place.
No trace of Cortney was found during Saturday's search, but true to their word, they're back at it tonight, rallying against shortening days and cooling temperatures until they find what they're looking for. Megan McCabe, CBC News, Torbay.